The famous Fitzwilliam album with miniatures of the Bukhara school is kept in a special fund. Many of these miniatures used to be illustrations for the manuscripts which have not survived. Initially, the album contained 47-48 folios with miniatures. Part of this album was auctioned off, whereas the other parts are dispersed among various museums around the world. They are kept at the Louvre in France, at the Freer Art Gallery in Washington, and the Museum of Art in San Diego in the USA, at the Museum of Islamic Art in Qatar. As for the UK itself, besides the Fitzwilliam Museum, folios from this album are kept at the British Museum and the Victoria and Albert Museum. It is known that some folios of the album were auctioned off from various auction houses.
Because it's only a very small part of the big and very impressive collection of Islamic art. We should call it the Fitzwilliam album. It should be called the Manouk album, according to the provenance, because the person who was collecting and brought it here was called Percival Manouk. He was a supreme judge in Patna, and he started to collect Indian, Persian, and generally Islamic art.
The Fitzwilliam Museum currently has 24 folios in its collections. This album is also called the Album of Akbar the Great, since many researchers believe that the miniatures collected from the lost manuscripts were intended as a gift to the great Baburid Emperor Akbar, who united India. He was the grandson of the great Zahiruddin Muhammad Babur and the third emperor of the Mughal dynasty. But there is also another version, according to which this album might have been commissioned by Akbar himself or by Akbar's mother, Hamida Banu Begim. The miniatures kept in the Fitzwilliam Museum illustrate the life of the Mughal emperors. Humayun is accepting the gifts of the Persian delegation. Akbar is watching the camel fight. Here we see a composition where Akbar's father, Humayun, receiving the embassy, is depicted in the upper part, whereas the very young Akbar watching the camel fight is depicted in the lower part. Another miniature called The Teacher and His Student depicts Akbar, a young man writing on a sheet of paper. The text is inscribed in large calligraphic handwriting on the back of this miniature. According to Firuza Melville, all identified poetic lines in Akbar's album belong to Sufi authors. Abdurrahman Jami, Amir Khusrau Dehlavi, Hafiz Saadi. In Akbar's album, there is a miniature. A young wrestler is defeated by his teacher, illustrating the plot of the story from Gulistan by Saadi.
This is an immediately recognizable story. Any art historian would immediately say what it's coming from. It's a story about a very experienced master, the wrestler, and he is fighting with his pupil, whom he taught with all tricks and the skills he knew himself, except the last one. And when the cunning pupil decided to demonstrate his skills, he learned from his teacher in front of the ruler.
There is another poem with the name of the calligrapher, and around the painting there is a quatrain saying that the champion is not the one who can overwhelm his enemy. The true champion is the one who can suppress his anger at the critical point. The calligrapher's name is Mir Ali. Among the artists and calligraphers whose names are mentioned in the album, there are those of Mahmud Muzahib and Sheikhzadeh. According to the museum documents, the famous calligrapher Mir Ali Husseini was also involved in the creation of the album. Only 2 miniatures from this album were shown at the exhibition called From Kabul to Kolkata. All the miniatures that we have shown you are an absolute exclusive.
and the minute details of the ornamentation of the background, and also the details of the clothes of the dancing girls. Unfortunately or fortunately, we don't really know. They were seriously retouched when they arrived to India, because the original design is very Bukhara style.